My name is Nick B, and let's jump into the futures overview. Now, this week's going to be a pretty short one, not too much to expect out of price action or fundamentals. You see, we have Wednesday ISM PMI at 10 a.m., and then Thursday we have unemployment claims. That's about it. Again, I don't expect too much out of this news event. I'm also probably going to take this week off, so I'm probably going to be pretty muted all around. Just let price action do its thing here. This is going to be a short video too, just real quick, kind of what to watch out for as price action is kind of carving out what it wants to do between the channels that it's at. So let's start with NQ. Now, I have left the previous levels up that we plotted. We have the all-time highs, right? 16,767. This pivot point right here, which was this previous lower high, and that is at 15,265, I believe. Yep. And then we have this one right here, this pivot point at 13,750. Now, zoom in a little bit more to kind of what are we looking at here in between. Well, I guess no, I like it zoomed out. That's better. Yeah, that's better. So right right away, 15,500, I want to point out, really it's more of a psychological SNR more than anything because we rejected it once, couldn't really get to it twice. The third time, it was a clean breakout where we got that squeeze to 16K, came back to retest 15.5, and then bounced right off of it, heading up to making higher lows, lower highs at 15.9, and then we had that little meltdown all the way down to check back this breakout here that we had at 14,700 more or less. Now, as long as NQ stays and holds 15,500, I see there's definitely room to keep going. But on the intraday level, I'm going to go ahead and say that probably, let me break this down to the hourly, probably, ooh, what is going on? All right, we're gonna need to get above 15,600. That's about right here. Yep, right here, where we have this little bump up here, and then price couldn't get above it recently. I think this was last week. We couldn't quite get above it, rejected back down pretty sharply. So I think if and when we get a break of 15.6, I think we can easily target along towards 15.9, 16,000 possibly. But that's to the upside. Downside is, and this is on the intraday level, if we break back down below 15.5, most likely we're going to come down to 15.4. Maybe if we can't hold 15.4, we're probably going to revisit the pivot point of 15.265. And that's as far as I'm going to cover to the downside. These blue levels that I have here are the previous higher lows that we had a tough time breaking down, but we broke down them and we had an immediate bounce from that 14,700 area. You could see how supply was kind of built up over there previously, but price held its own and made higher highs, higher lows. And we continue to get back up to 15.5 again. Now it's just about what are we really going to do here? Are we really going to sell off? Now, let's go back to the daily because that's really going to tell us the big picture. This looks like a head and shoulders here. You have the left shoulder here, you have the head, and it's kind of like a right shoulder forming here. Your neckline is pretty clear that it's at 14.7. Intraday, I'm going to take these levels out, but just to keep in mind, it's nice to keep in mind that 1550 held up on its own, and then 14,850 held up pretty well as well. But let me remove that for now. Okay, so if this head and shoulders plays out, I mean, really, you don't really want to touch anything in between here. You could try to scalp those shorts as we're breaking down, especially if we break back down below 15,265. I think it could be a green light to come back down to 15,000 area. And then again, below 1550, we're looking at the previous higher lows because it has history to it. We can use that as context clues on what direction wants to do, if it's strong enough to be held up by these previous higher lows, or if we start breaking down. And again, a good short trade, I think for me at least, is now below 14.7. I would definitely be targeting the supports here at 14,250, 14,300, roughly that area there. Otherwise, everything here in between, I'm okay. I rather let this week digest, and I'll revisit it, I guess, when we're either above 15.6 or below 14.7. Everything in between, not interested. Now, moving to ES. Same thing here. The same levels are still up here. Nothing's really changed, right? 4808, the all-time highs. We have 4630, this pivot point right here, where we basically, if we want to go higher, we got to get break out of it, but that's still a bit of ways away. We have the other pivot level that's basically holding this move up to the upside is 43.25. So we're really in between 46.30 and 43.25. So if we break below 43.25, great. We can short it down to 4200 easy. But everything in between here, similar to NQ, it's kind of funny money territory in my opinion. I think you're kind of just going to be trying to time momentum. And from the last 3 weeks of August, when we were trying to time momentum, not a good idea, but definitely you could do it. So the level that I have up that's similar to NQ. So for NQ, the yellow line was at 15.5. For ES, my yellow line is at 4,500. They're more or less on the same page. So I'd imagine that if we can't hold 15.5 and we start breaking down below towards 15,265 on NQ, we'd probably be below 4,500 on ES. And again, the first level of support on the intraday, let's take a look on the intraday real quick on the hourly. Okay, so below 4,500, you'd probably end up looking at 44.80. Below 44.80, I'd probably take a look at 44.60. The reason I say 44.60 is you have some supply here, you have some of it here. Here we rejected previously, so there's some history to that intraday support resistance level. On the other side of things, ES likes to move 20 points intraday, so that's also kind of a context clue. If we break below 4,500, probably we're going to be heading towards 44.80, and then below that 44.60, 44.40. What do I have here? Okay, the previous higher low 44.10. That's essentially once we got back above that level here, we just took off, and we also created pretty much new higher lows from what these were at 43.70 and at 44.10. So these are going to be the new ones are at 43.50 and 43, basically 43.65, basically the same thing as 43.70. But just again, something to keep in mind as we're moving in the swings. If we can't get below this 44.10, probably not going to head much lower. If we do break below 44.10, I'd imagine we'd come back down to 43.70. Again, you could try to short those moves there, but the big picture, keep in mind, we're always looking at the big picture. What does the big picture say? What is the overall trend? The trend is bullish unless we break below this pivot level of 43.25. Again and again, then it makes sense to short, down to 4200. You get a clean 100 points, take profit. You could set your stop loss, I don't know, maybe from 43.25, probably 50 points. So it's at least a 2-to-1 ratio. But in between, the problem is that we're timing momentum and we want to avoid that. Whoa, it got really dark, my bad. The screen up top went dark on me. But overall, again, similarly to NQ, it looks like a head and shoulders pattern here. So the only way is if we start breaking back down below 4,500, really the main short is below the neckline of 43.70, 43.25. Right? I'm interested in 43.70 first because that's roughly the 100-day EMA as well on the daily. That's a pretty strong support. So if we break below it, most likely we're coming down to 43.25, and then again we can short easily down 100, 120 points to the downside once this neckline breaks. Otherwise, not much to really look forward to in terms of downside. um, if we hold 4,500, the intraday supports, again, keeping in mind we like to move in 20-point increments, is going to be 45.20, 45.40. And then the main level that I would like to see us above, if we want to get at least back to 4,600 territory, is going to be 45.50. I'm going to plot that as well. And then we'll break it down on the intraday and take a look at what it looks like on the hourly. 1 second, let's make it green. Okay. And then down to the 1 hour, and look what it tells us. So it tells us basically because we're above 4,500 and kind of from 44.10, 4,500 is that next big pivot level on the intraday. If we can hold 4,500, it gives us room to head higher. And that next major R for me would be 45.50, 45.60 area. You could see a few times how we rejected here. Here we held a support, here we held a support, here rejection. We try to break out, false breakout, but still Um, it has basically some history to it right here. We also attempted to break out but couldn't. Started selling down, and again recently, last week, we got very very close to 45.50 but couldn't get above it. So I think if we get above 45.50, that gives us a green light not only to get back towards the 4600 territory, but really these previous session highs at 4630. And then again, if we can get above 4630, I think that's an easy long to 4700. I think Goldman is targeting that kind of trade too. Right here, you can see above 4630. 4700 was that first previous all-time high. 4711, sorry, 4711. So if we get 4630, 4711 would be the perfect long. Other than that, I mean, it's chop suey. I hope you guys have a great week. But I won't be doing too much, and I'll be back at it in full swing probably into next week. If there are some nice movers in here, I mean, I hope you guys can catch them, but I personally would stay out of it. I would just let this week, kind of dissect, let price action do its thing. Carlos is so awesome with the live blog. I mean, the guy's just on point. Just keep an eye on that on Discord. And other than that, that's all she wrote. I hope you guys have a great week ahead, and I will catch you guys into next week, most likely. Cheers.